everybody, and welcome to The High Ground, a recap where we talk all things about the Star Wars Disney Plus series Andor. I am your host, Katie, and I'm here with my co-host, Naomi, and we are here on behalf of Silent Podcasts, where we are anything but silent. Naomi, how are you?
Katie, I'm so good. I'm good because Star Wars is good. And
Oh,
that's like all I can
so
ask
good.
for.
Do you feel like this is maybe some of the best Star Wars that we've perhaps ever seen?
Well, considering that the first thing that you and I covered together was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that was a big pile of something. I feel like, we've had The Mandalorian and everyone loves The Mandalorian. Everyone go get your Baby Yoda merch or whatever. But there's something about this show where like a heist happens and there's all these tropes of the heist and there's all these different things and yet still I'm like what a twist, like they're getting me. So
Yeah.
um thank you to the Gilroy brothers. You're doing great, sweetie, and I am
Yes.
excited that this series is 12 episodes and not 6.
I am so excited that the series is 12 episodes and not 6. It feels like typically in one of these shows, it feels like we would be really close to the end and being like, damn, I wonder what's going to happen in season 2. But we have, 5 more episodes to go? Like, we're right smack in the middle. We have no idea where we're heading. Everything's going great so far. I'm really excited about it. For those of you who normally maybe watch us live on YouTube, we're not live today on YouTube, but we will be posting the video. So you could be watching us after the fact. So if you have questions, tweet them at us. We'll answer them next time. We're more than happy to take the feedback. We're just not live today. So just a quick disclaimer. All right, we're going to be covering episodes 6 and 7 today. So we have episode titles. The Eye is episode 6. The announcement is episode 7, which came out yesterday. We're recording this on a Thursday. To me, it feels like, I know we talked about when we spoke about this last time, it feels like, okay, first 3 episodes were an arc, second 3 episodes were an arc, the third 3 episodes are probably going to be part of an arc. It still feels to me like episodes 6 and 7 are so closely connected, because it's like episode 6 was literally just the heist. Like and I know we talked about like, I hope it's not just the heist. I'm actually glad. I feel like we really got to go deep. And then episode 7, it's like the immediate aftermath, which is really exciting. So I'm excited to talk about these two together.
Yes. And I also think that like in some ways episode 6 was the heist, but it wasn't just like get through the building and get the money and leave. It was like, the post heist scenes with them on the planet, the scenes of the Imperial family that got sort of kidnapped, the scenes of the native Aldani people. Like there was a lot to it, which I think made it feel all the more tense and not inauthentically tense, because that's one of my biggest problems with like TV shows, whatever, is when the hype is like, oh my God, is it going to happen? Like, not to talk shit about Obi-Wan Kenobi again, but like all the fights with like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're like, well, this doesn't feel very dramatic to me, because I know that these motherfuckers are going to make it out of here. Like it had a lot of tenseness to it because you really didn't know where any of these elements were going to come to play. And I also think, and I don't know how, this is kind of the big topic I want to talk about with you, Katie, is like, this series is really showing that the Empire is not just a bunch of stormtroopers missing targets, that the Empire is like a very, very, it is full of very smart people, very smart evil people, like the guard who figures out the communications are messed up, like the whole ISB. And it shows that like the Empire is not just some evil bumbling hand, but like a very strategic force that is implementing its control over the people of the Empire.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because I wanted to talk about that as well. I feel like you're right. In episode 6, we saw a lot of competent people, which we typically, when we think of the Empire in traditional Star Wars, it's like stormtroopers, I can't shoot in one way, and people who like all you have to do to get through is like dress up in a costume and like you can walk by, which they did in this episode, but we did see the prep going into it. We saw like you have to hold the guns in a certain way to be able to fit in. We found out that
Tamarind, people still gave them the eye. People still looked at them like, who the hell are these guys?
They did. It didn't feel like they were like, do, I'm wearing a uniform, so I'm good. It felt like, oh, are they going to get caught here? Because it did feel like totally what you mentioned there was tense, but it didn't feel like it was inauthentically tense. We found out that Tamarin was Taramin was a former stormtrooper, so like he had some inside knowledge. It's I feel like they played it out in a way that felt so real in the sense that it's still Star Wars. Like it's Star Wars, but it felt like it was like real life. It felt like there were stakes. It felt like this actually is a government that's very fascist in nature that is still rising in the ranks of,
Mm.
and like still becoming the peak of what it is. And there are still really dedicated people to whatever cause that there is and whatever, area of service they work in. And like they're doing their jobs and they're doing them well. And I think that's scarier than just like stormtroopers in a suit or Darth Vader or an emperor. Like we really get to see the nuts and bolts of it all. And they're good at their jobs, which we've never
Mhm.
really seen before.
I enjoyed it immensely. I also think that the idea of the heist itself is also a great concept that I don't think we really see before, which is like money.
Yep.
Money matters to a rebellion. Money matters to getting anything done. And it's an attack on the empire, not to, say, "Yeah, rebels rule, we're winning," or whatever. It's a specific attack to like get money to fund their efforts. And I'm the kind of person who will watch a TV show and be like, how can they afford this? I'm watching girls being like, how do they afford this? I never
Yeah.
see them take the subway. I never see them pay their rent. But this is like a great moment of like, wow, we're really seeing the logistics of forming a
Yep.
rebellion. And we'll talk about it later with like Mon Mothma in the episode 7.
Yeah.
But with the heist, I really enjoyed Vel, and I forget the other character's name because they like never say it. The other woman who is
Oh,
fighting amongst
Cinta.
them. Cinta. I really liked them as a element of this heist because we kept basically being told, "Don't worry about them.
Yep.
Don't ask what they're doing."
Yep.
And I was like, "Oh, they're just gonna like stay behind or something stupid like that, or just be with the Aldani people." But no, they were like Squid Gaming it up, riding those
Oh,
little like
yeah.
vehicles. Did you like their plotting, their part in
Yeah,
the heist?
I really liked their part of the heist, and I really liked the part where they were trying to get in contact with them, the other, the group that was separate and through Terriman, and they were hesitating to answer because it felt like you could feel like they were apprehensive. Like everybody here felt like they could feel the weight of what they're about to do, and everybody was apprehensive in their own way. They were scared, they were nervous, where I feel like that's another thing that we don't always see in Star Wars. It's like your heroes are very heroic and no one is like scared to go onto the Death Star or go
Mhm.
wherever and like take on these people in their like stormtrooper fake uniforms. Like, but this, it's like, oh no, we're really starting something. We're making the first real strike here, and there are going to be consequences, and nobody really knows what those consequences are going to be, and you could like feel the weight of that. So that was my favorite part of the Valencinta
Mm.
part. And I like that they were like very stealth, like they were underwater and they were in that cool thing. Like that was
With
very
some suits.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is like everybody talks about being able to like, do you want to die for the cause? And
Right.
I think you could see Vel basically thinking like, do I want to die for the cause? And I loved the quote that my little communist manifesto boy,
Oh
who
yeah.
Nemec? No,
Yes, Nemec. Yes.
Nemec. When Nemec is sort of like he's lecturing Cassian before they go out, and he's like, "What does Cassian say?" It's literally in the episode opening, and I can't. I don't really take notes when I watch Star Wars, guys, because I like watching Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's what he says to him, and he sort of says, "Do I look afraid to you, or do I look? Oh, do I look not happy?" But essentially the idea of like, well, if you're not going to fight the empire, you just must be complacent with it. It's like, do
Yeah.
I look like I'm fucking excited about the empire,
Right.
sir?
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
true. Just because you're not physically fighting the empire, or not, you're not sacrificing your life, doesn't mean that you're a part of it. And that's, I think, a lead into who the rebellion is now trying to get a hold of. First, we got a hold of all the radicals, and we got a hold of the people who are like actively fighting, and now we need to
Mhm.
get a hold of the people who are not happy but essentially cannot do anything.
Or the people who are in the system, right? They're like within it and they're not happy being within it. They're cogs in the wheel, but they don't want to be cogs in the wheel anymore to this fascistic empire that's, especially in episode 7, increasing surveillance. It's almost like a very post 9/11 United States where like the Patriot Act went into place and just like basically allowed the government to spy on every citizen. That's what's happening here with the empire, but like almost more drastic. Like we're going to increase prison sentences. We're doing all these things as a reaction. And this is a chain reaction that like our group that we've been following for the last few episodes set off, and then we kind of get to watch at least some of them, most of them, a few of them, see the direct consequences of their actions once they're back in their real life. And then we find out that Vel is actually seemingly on Coruscant, seemingly part of something. We get to see Luthen, we get to see Mon Mothma, who doesn't even know that this was happening with her seeming ally Luthen at the helm. We get to see Cassian, can't even go back to Ferrix. I mean, it's really interesting how we get to see it all play out in their real lives because all of these people are part of something. They're not just normally when we see rebels in Star Wars, they're just like on a rebel planet. They're in a place, they're at a base, they're, you know, in a situation where like this just feels like it's their whole lives, but we're not there yet. Like this is the beginning stages, which I think is really cool.
Yes, and this kind of brings me to my one gripe.
Okay.
Which is that I still don't really understand what Cassian Andor wants. Everybody else is getting very defined by their wants in the rebellion, or maybe there's a layer of mystery. I think Vel has a layer of mystery to her, Luthen as well. But Andor obviously was escaping getting arrested, but he was also looking for his sister. We've kind of lost track of that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And as we see in episode 7, he kind of loses everybody he loves. Bix doesn't want to go with him. His mommy Marva doesn't want to go with him. So who does he have? And
Right.
I think that it's interesting because he's not a quippy kind of guy like a Han Solo. He's not just a do-good nerd like Luke Skywalker. Um, and I'm kind of hoping that in the next few episodes that we will get more definition as to like, well, okay, we do get the definition of Clem, but at the same time, I feel like I'm losing the the now. We know what he
Yep.
was motivated by when he was like 15, 16, or whenever this incident happened, but we don't really he just wants to go to space Miami and chill out.
Yeah. 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 You know, I agree. I think we're going to get it. I think there's obviously going to have to be some character development to get him to the point where he's, you know, who he is in Rogue One, where it's like he's fully repping the rebellion. He's all in. This is his life. And we almost see Jyn Erso at the place where Cassian is now of just like, I just like want to live my life, dude. Like, I just want to get out of here or whatever. And he's the one that's really pushing the rebellion, not pushing it on her, but he's like living, breathing it. So we're going to get there. I have to assume, otherwise that would be a huge, I can't imagine that they wouldn't connect those dots for us. But we'll see. I mean, we know that there's going to be 2 seasons of this show with 24 episodes each. 24 episodes total, 12 episodes each. So I feel like they're going to give it to us. Right now, to me, it feels like Cassian is like the vehicle to get us from point A to point B, but almost everything else in the series is more of like the main character than him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just want to I'm a subscriber to something called Episodic Medium, which is like a Substack that has like a lot of amazing television reviewers posting their reviews.
Awesome.
And somebody in the comments said something that I think is true. Is that like he's using Andor to explore what makes people fight it, what makes people go along with it, and how does a person go from being one type to another of this idea of like a rebel versus a fascist. And on the other thing is like uh this is a show about how someone gains the spirit of rebellion,
Mhm.
which is true, but I feel like it's 7 episodes in, and the most we know about the spirit of rebellion is what happened to him when he was like 15, 16. And
Yeah.
so it's one thing to say, well, it makes him cold and closed off while his adoptive mother decides to essentially stay and fight. But you're kind of sitting here and you're like, okay, well, we're 7 episodes in. Like, we
Yeah.
gotta, if like, if Nemec dying doesn't like touch your soul and whatever, then what is like kind of motivating you in a sense? And
Right.
I just really hope that they explore that deeper.
I hope that they will, and I think that they will. I have to think that Nemec's kind of like Communist Manifesto style, rebellion report that was given to Cassian at the time of Nemec's death when he left them on that moon, I guess it was, with the doctor. Um, that's going to have to come into play, I would assume. I don't assume that he has it with him
Hmm.
in the situation that he's in at the end of episode 7, which we'll talk about when we get there. But there's got to be something that will connect Nemec's writing to where Cassian is at that point in his life to where we end up meeting him for the first time that we meet him in Rogue One. Like there has
Yeah.
to be, otherwise it feels like there would be no show. So I trust the process that they'll get us there, but I kind of appreciate. I think I was reading something on AV Club earlier, and they pointed out that in episode 7 it took us 17 minutes of the episode to see Cassian within the episode, and it's a show. The show's called Andor. It's about
Hmm.
Cassian, and we in episode 7 we didn't even see him until 17 minutes in. So I think that they're really kind of doing a lot of really amazing world building and showing exactly the consequences of like what, like step 1. Okay, we're going right to step 2. Like we're not skipping ahead here, and I really like that. Like it's giving us. It just feels. I think I said it before, but it just feels like real.
Yeah. And some people are saying, "Oh, well, is it like is if Andor's our main character, why aren't we spending more time with him?" But at the same time, I don't think that Star Wars is not Luke Skywalker,
Right.
like Obi-Wan Kenobi was not meant to just and The Mandalorian is not just freaking Pedro Pascal in a mask.
Right.
Like there are other elements to it that influence and create reasons for us to stick around that are not just the main lead of the show, which I think builds upon the Star Wars that we already know. Like it creates a expansive world, like so much better than people are gonna gripe about Andor, and like I think my gripes are more like I want to see his motivations and not so much I don't care that he's like the lead of the show at all times.
Right.
But it's like I don't watch like I'm not a big Marvel fan, and part of it is because I'm like, okay, we're just watching like Captain America do his like nerdy ass shit for the third time in
Yeah.
a row. Like
Right.
I would rather go out of the central gaze of the main character and
Me too.
explore lots of elements than be stuck with this guy the whole time and just be learning, oh, what's this about the rebellion, what's this, like I'd rather explore lots of different, because otherwise you're just going to shoehorn him in with Mon Mothma and be like, by the way, meet Mon Mothma, and you're like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah,
um
exactly. Like I feel like the way that like the narrative choices they're making make the world feel bigger. Where you're right, like if we see Star Wars through Luke Skywalker's eyes or Anakin Skywalker's eyes in the prequels or Rey's eyes in the sequels, we're missing out on so much. And I feel like they're doing such a good job here showing us like what corporate life looks like in this post empire pre true rebellion world, what the beginning stages of the empire really becoming what it really ends up becoming, what that looks like, what we're seeing, we talked about Ferrex and how much we like the planet. We're seeing what that looks like, and then we're not really seeing it through Cassian's eyes, but we're hearing through these other characters like the impact of Cassian's actions that happen on Ferrex and how it's impacted the people that are living on the planet. We're seeing Mon Mothra's, you know, her life as a senator. It's just like it just opens things up so much more, and I don't think we would get a lot of that context and the world building if we were only following Cassian around. So like I'm
mhm.
okay. Like we'll get there with Cassian. I'm sure we will. And like even if we don't, if he's the vehicle that we're like seeing all of this through and like is taking us again to like point, even though he's not really even taking us to point A to point B because like there's a lot of scenes without him, then I'm kind of fine with it. I'm kind of fine with it because I think the story and the world that they're giving us is like so interesting and immersive. Then
Mhm.
like I'm good.
Yeah, I'm much more compelled by like this group of fighters, these group of rebels having infighting than I am by
Mm-hmm.
like one guy trying to save the galaxy. Like Solo is one of my least favorite Star Wars pieces
Okay.
of media, and I think it's because it totally misunderstands the storytelling of like somebody who became so jaded or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what can rich people in this empire that is, so based in like not only wealth, but based in like political influence do to somebody who is from nothing and has nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's all to say that I I wanted to circle back to like the beginning of the eye is that the whole the idea of them kidnapping the I don't know what his title is, but like, one of the commanders and his wife and kid,
Yep.
who really are just kind of in it to like be like he just wants a promotion. He wants to get everyone talks about how they want to get off this planet, which I get it. Like seems like a nice kind of planet, seems
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Got a lovely celestial event every year. Um, that the people who are in the sort of corporate imperial part of this empire are like just people who like want to utilize the empire to for their own gain. And I
Mhm.
like that. I like seeing that because I think it again reminds us that like not everybody is pure evil, but people are very self-interested and very self-motivated.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's like, I would almost feel like that's the theme of the show. Like right
Mhm.
now, the Cassian that we're with, he's completely self interested and self motivated. And he meets people who are not, but like everybody is to an extent. Like Skeen, we find out, well, we'll talk about Skeen when we get a
Frickin'
little deeper into the
scheme.
episode. Yeah, fucking Skeen. And Luthen is kind of seemingly, he was an interesting character where we didn't know if he was going to be a hero. Seems like he's almost becoming a little bit of a villain, like it maybe an anti-hero, like that we're everybody seems really complicated and really gray, and I like that because usually in Star Wars it's so clear like who your hero is and who you're supposed to root against. It's like,
Oh yeah.
ooh, empires are the baddies and the Jedi and the rebels are the good guys, and like now we know who we need to root against. But this is like so gritty and so gray, and like we're really seeing the bad parts of people in addition to the some of like the redeeming qualities. And it just makes me feel like this is Star Wars for adults. Like this is Star Wars for people that can like understand nuance, and it doesn't have to be like so cut and paste of like, let me slap this Jedi on here to make you know that this is the good guy, and
Yeah,
like
I'm
let
a
me
Jedi
slap
and
this.
therefore I must be good. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's like it's much more complicated than that, and people are more complicated than that. And I'm glad that Star Wars is finally exploring that concept.
It reminds me a lot of remember when Hux in episode 9 turns out to be a spy? And you're like, what the
Yeah.
absolute fuck? Like
Yep.
how who? But
Yeah.
part of that is this idea of like, yeah, maybe somebody does choose to go against the empire, but the fact that it's done in the most convoluted way
Sure.
to get to like an undeserved ending, like
Yep.
actually he's been a spy the whole time. It's just like, are you kidding me? And I feel like this is a much more nuanced, much more deep and human telling of that kind of same story of like how does somebody betray what they know, which is what we get with his the Gorm, the
Yeah.
imperial officer converted to rebel, and we kind of get hints at his story, which I don't think we need to go super in depth with
Yeah.
because it makes sense. He like hates the empire. He scorned the woman he loved. He lost her for the
Yep.
empire, and now he wants to stick it to the man. Stick it to the man. Like
Yeah.
that's what he's doing. And I
Right.
loved the way he performed this episode's performance from the actor who plays Gorm was very well done.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could really feel the weight of like every movement that every character in episode 6 made. Like everything that Valencenta did, everything that the group of, the rest of the rebel or the rest of the group. I don't even know that we can say that they're like rebels yet because I don't know that they have like the moniker of that, but like that group, and then we really feel the weight of I think his name is Behaz is the commander from the empire whose family got pretty much held hostage.
Yeah.
And even this, like, from a Star Wars perspective and from a Disney perspective, we've never seen live action Star Wars go this dark. I think we saw it in Clone Wars in some aspects. Clone Wars gets pretty dark and pretty sad and pretty grim in a lot of ways, which is why it's some of my favorite Star Wars storytelling, because I think we see a lot of that nuance in that show, but it's animated and people don't love animation. Not everybody loves animation, it's not for everyone. So like this is the first time we're really seeing a lot of these concepts in live action Star Wars, and I love it. This is like, I know we talked about this last time, and I think you had asked me what like Star Wars stories I wanted to see, and I was like, yeah, this timeline. I'm so in on everything that they're doing in this timeline because this is what I want. I want to see what takes the Empire from like level A to like level Z. Like I want to see that transition. I don't want to just know that they're bad guys. Like I want to see the complication. I want to see the people on Aldani hating the Empire. I want to see the transition of like this is the last time they're actually going to be allowed to come here and observe this celestial event like cuz we're kicking them out basically. We're taking over. We're getting more evil as we go. So I'm just excited to that we finally get to see some of that.
And also on top of like the Empire knowing that they're going to fuck up the Aldani's space and ruin it for like an airfield, is the knowledge that Luthen has of like which we really learn in episode 7, which I think is very fascinating. Of like, yeah, the Empire is going to make things way worse for everybody. That's exactly what we want to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
if the Aldanis weren't going to get punished by, building an airfield, they're certainly going to get punished. They say like there's no more gatherings for like religious or ceremonial purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And Luthen is fine with that. And then there's also the question of like, what does a rebellion mean if you're sacrificing people's lives and hurting people and having people sort of live in under like terroristic conditions? If is it worth it if you win? And we know that they don't. What is this? 5 years BBY, something like that.
I
Like
think so. Yeah.
we know that first of all, Cassian's gonna fucking die. So is your life worth it
Yeah.
for the rebellion? But on top of that, we know that even after the battle BBY, even after the first Death Star imploding, it's still going to take like 2 more movies to get the
Yep.
Empire out of here, and then we're gonna have
And
a
then we
whole
just get a
Nazi
fake
regime.
one.
Yeah, then we
Yeah.
get a new
That
one.
takes place like 5 years later or something. They just build it right back up with a new
Yeah.
name.
So is
Yeah.
this suffering worth it for the rebellion? Is I think a really interesting question to constantly ask yourself while you're watching this. And I think that the writers know it as well.
Yeah. I feel like they're really showing us that people have to make a choice, right? They're showing us that like, there's people are going to suffer in war no matter what. Like this isn't going to be easy and people are going to have to make sacrifices and that is what it is. So it's a choice you have to make. Like, how far are you willing to go? And I think we see Andor, Cassian, go from who he is now, which seems to be very self interested, only cares about himself, pays back, tries to, wants to just get the 30,000 credits that he signed up for. He doesn't need all the rest of this money. He's not going to steal it. He just wants what he's owed for the job that he did so he could pay back his debts and then just go live a life where he doesn't have to worry about this stuff. He just wants to be able to, like, not be stressed and just get his debts off his back to where he ends up in Rogue One, where he's willing to die for the rebellion. Like it's interesting that we can see how people can like start and then how they like are going to end up making those decisions down the line, or really feeling like, yeah, the sacrifice is worth it. These sacrifices are worth it.
So do we want to go through the recapping of the heist, or do we want to just pontificate more on the implications of robbing the Empire?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it. So, yeah, I mean, basically, I don't know if you agree, but I was surprised at how messy this was because we didn't really see. So, the heist turns out to be pretty messy. We see like some preliminary planning before episode 6 and episode 5, and we see them, do you know how to be a soldier? Do you know how to march? Do you know how to do this, this, and this? We don't really know what their plans are. We know that they don't know how to drive the ship and they need Cassian to do that and input the weight and the coordinates. We get that. So we get the sense that they're amateurs, right? But like they're in there holding people hostage, blatantly like being in front of other Empire employees, soldiers. And they're just like, yeah, no, this is like a thing. It's like they were not under wraps at all. Like I was expecting this to be a super stealth mission. And then when I saw the rolls of credits and how large they are and the amount of money that they were actually taking, I was like, oh, this is like way bigger than I think any of us realize. And I think obviously that's kind of the point, right? Of like how large of an attack this is.
Yeah.
But we've seen so many heists and so many like things getting pulled off in Star Wars before that we're just like, oh, they're just going to like do some dumb thing, sneak in, sneak out. But that's not what this show is.
No, it is not. And I think it's a great point you've made, and it reminds me of like how the boss kind of like collapses and like is
Yeah.
clearly like a little too hot and schwitzy to
Yeah.
be under these conditions. But I think it also demonstrates that, like, this is not easy. This is not just shooting, the bullet down the center of the Death Star and blowing the whole thing up.
Yep.
It's very messy, and that's also kind of why I don't want to say that like I like seeing character deaths, but I don't know if you've been watching Lord of the Rings.
I had not
And
yet. I'm gonna binge it.
okay, I won't spoil too much, but I feel like
Okay.
Lord of the Rings shies away from character death.
Yeah.
And it
I feel like
shies
we see that in Game of Thrones too, like in the first series of Game of Thrones towards the end.
Yes, because the characters are so beloved. Also, my boyfriend just started watching Game of Thrones, and I
Sorry to him.
I forgot how horny jail the first season of Game of Thrones is. They were like, if we can't get people to watch, we'll just give them boobs. It's crazy.
Oh, so yeah, yeah. Everyone has to go to horny
Gross.
jail.
And it's
That
insane
show.
that I think any of us watched that series in retrospect. Um,
Truly, truly.
but also Lord of the Rings, I feel like what the series suffered from, and I don't want to say that it was bad because I thought there were a lot of good elements to it. The series suffered from like this constant idea of like, well, we're going to fight and we're going to win. And I like that Andor and what the Star Wars universe is trying to sort of pivot to in a way is like, you're going to fight, but you might not win. You might
Yeah.
lose a lot of people. And I think we did see that also as well in Obi-Wan Kenobi, is that you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices and it's going to get messy. And you're just going to hope that you skate by and that you
Yep.
sort of eke out the win. And that is what I liked about, the soldier who figured out why the comms were being hacked.
Yeah.
All the soldiers who were sort of like putting up a fight and didn't really want to help the rebels in the basement. And I enjoyed it overall. One detail that was pointed out to me, I think by a review or an online video, is that when Tamarin is like, cover me, Skeen doesn't really cover him.
Mm.
And he
Mm-hmm.
kind of lets him die, and then later we see
Yeah.
why that would be beneficial to him is, let's let's let somebody die and I get more money.
Right.
Secretly, it's easier for me to just steal all of the money.
Right.
Um, and I really liked the battle scenes. It really felt like they were up against the wall, and it felt like they were in trouble, which I
Yeah.
think a lot of the time your heroes don't feel like they're in trouble when you're watching a
Totally.
TV show.
Yeah, there were stakes, right? Like it didn't feel like in most Star Wars it feels like we know what's going to happen, you know? Like there's never other than maybe like obviously episode 3 because it had to be where like, the good guys don't win because it's just part of the story, but like in episode 5, I think we were left in a place where things were a little dire and it wasn't a happy ending by any means. People survived, people got captured, Han was in carbonite, but like for the most part, we know what's going to happen. We're in for the ride until we get there, but we know what's going to happen. Like our main characters aren't going to die. Everyone's going to be fine. They're going to put Chewie on the other ship. Oh no, he's on the other
Oh
ship.
my
Don't worry,
fucking
he's
God.
fine.
Don't get me
Yeah,
back
like
on that again.
yeah, don't worry, Leia can float through the air. It's all good. It's all good. Everything's fine. Our heroes aren't going to die. But here, the main characters that we've been following for 3 episodes, the majority of them died. Like this did not go according to plan. There were things they didn't account for. They didn't really account for someone realizing that the comms were down. They didn't really, and then like figuring it out and going to check on what it was. They didn't really account for, this guy B's whatever. What did I say his name was? I don't even remember. I had
Commander
it somewhere
Bees.
written.
I've got
B
I pulled it by
B
IMDb.
House or something.
You're gonna be mad at me for not knowing
Ye-
names.
no, trust me. If you listen to our House of the Dragon podcast, I literally don't know anyone's name, so I apologize. So they're just not my strong suit. So yeah, it's just again, it feels like there are stakes, and they're willing to take the risk, and they're willing to let us get invested in people who are gonna die at the end of the episode, and that's what I really like about this, because a rebellion shouldn't be easy. You should have to make sacrifices. This is essentially, realistically, yeah, they're the good, I guess they're the good guys, right? I mean, technically, but they're kind of terrorists. Like they're committing a terrorist attack. Like that's literally what's happening. Maybe, like a low scale terrorist attack, but they're attacking the government. And like the Death Star blowing up is a literal terrorist attack. That's what's happening here. Like I know we like sugarcoat it and we're like, yeah, they're the good guys, so everything's fine. But like they're literally blowing up a government ship, which yeah, sure is a weapon that is going to blow up planets, that has blown up a planet. So it's not
But
like
it's
they're
also
the
like
good guys
also
either.
full of people. Like they're
Right. There
the
are
death tolls
ton
are
of
never really
casualties.
and but I that also leads me to a point where I thought that what was interesting about the eye is that like they actually really didn't kill a lot of people. They
Right.
would just like take a lot of people hostage, keep them in the room,
Mhm.
and they didn't kill a lot of the soldiers until they started shooting at them. But I also
Right.
kind of I do admire that in a sense of like the show isn't gonna sit here and say like, oh yeah, these guys are just gonna come in guns a blazing and
Mhm.
they're badass. They're
Yeah.
gonna come in and they're gonna try and have minimal bloodshed strictly because like it's not beneficial to them to kill a bunch of soldiers,
Yep.
but rather I'm going to take these people captive. And this is what, again, I think Star Wars is actually about is I'm going to take this family captive because in reality, you don't care about the Empire. You care about your family and you care about what's
Yep.
going on with you. And
Yep.
so and there are people like Cyril, right, who are the sort of antithesis to that, where
Mhm.
they care so much about the rule and the law, and Dedra as well, and
Yep.
Blevin, where they care so much about what is happening with the Empire that they have no humanity to them.
Right. Right. And like not everybody's like that. And I think that's how they've kind of portrayed a lot of Star Wars in the past. Like it's been very black and white. This is much more gray. And what I also really liked about this episode is how they incorporated the Aldani people and how it showed us like again, no subtitles, which this one I was a little bit like it's inconsequential, I guess.
Yeah.
But like I want to know. I felt tense. Like I felt like the Aldani people maybe were planning something. I felt like something could go wrong with them. Which I guess like that helps build up the tension, right? Because we really don't know what they're saying or
Mhm.
what they're talking about. But like I wanted more insight into the everyday person on this planet. We know that they've been dwindling in numbers. What are they thinking? What are they thinking about? We know that they hate the Empire. It's obvious, very obvious. They made that clear, and the Empire doesn't like them either. Obviously, do they like anybody? They just have an end goal of just unlimited power. But I wanted to know more because I just feel like we don't really get to see the Empire's impact on everyday people, especially like people who are native to the planets that are now under imperial control. Like I wanted to just get more insight into that. That's maybe my one complaint about these two episodes.
Yeah, I liked him. I like the Aldani uh elder burning the fur. That made me laugh. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
fuck your
great.
ceremonial
Yeah, that was
fur.
great.
I agree with you. I actually think this is something that Ferrix does very well, but also that I think Obi-Wan Kenobi had some hints of, like the farmer out in the fields and like
Yep.
how you just have to go through these like stupid little checkpoints.
Yep.
But I also concur, like I do wish that there was more to it, or more to the more to seeing maybe where the Aldani live and their
Yeah.
population. Are they almost I don't want to say this in like, but like almost like reticent of like Native Americans being stuck on a reservation, right? Of
Right.
like, we police your entire natural land now and you're sort of
Mm-hmm.
under our control. I do wish we could have seen something along those lines
Yeah.
because that would have been more compelling than just them, showing up out of nowhere, being like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, the sheep herders are here. I also
Right.
thought that like at some point one of our little heisty rebels was going to join them and just sort of pretend to be one of them, but it turns out that really wasn't the case. Like I thought
Mm-hmm.
they were going to come back around to pretending to be them.
Oh yeah.
Like Cinta just sneaks out and just kind of like puts on
Yeah.
a big fuzzy hat and is like, "No, no, no, I've been
Yeah.
with you guys the whole time."
A red-headed wig. I think though most of them had red hair. I think,
Yeah,
which I was
weird,
like,
weird.
oh
I liked it.
yeah, very interesting. Interesting crew. And that's why I want to know more about them. We'll probably never see them again, unfortunately. But the heist, going back to the heist itself, I think we talked a lot about. I mean, there's not like a ton of sure. There's a ton of like detail that we can get into, but I don't know that we need to like nitpick every single.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're listening to this, you watched the episode, and I
Yeah.
think you had some highlights. Is there a scene in particular that you enjoyed the most, or like a moment in the eye that you enjoyed?
Um.
Oh, I can go first. Wait, I thought of
Yeah.
mine.
Go first. Yeah.
Oh my god, when the pilots are getting into the Imperial ships, the TIE fighters,
Yeah.
when you get that, it's a beautiful shot of like them coming down their little ladder,
Mhm.
getting into the oh, I loved it. That was so good. Like perfect capturing of like what is it like to be a TIE fighter? Because most of the time they just show up and they're in their
Yeah,
freaking
they're just up there. Yeah.
but what a shot. And also I did really like Cassian driving through the field, driving through the
Mhm.
starship field. And Nemec, using his last remnants of life to try and navigate them. Also, Nemec, huge OSHA violation, guys. Like we really need to have seatbelts
Ooh.
on these vessels.
Yeah, this was rough. That was probably my favorite. Not my favorite scene, Nemec dying, but just that the the stakes were never higher. They needed to get off this planet. Cassian was doing everything that he could to get off, and Nemec came through. They gave him that like jolt of a med pack or whatever that was, which was interesting. I don't know that we've really like seen med packs like that like in live action Star Wars. It's very like Jedi Fallen Order video
Hmm.
game vibes. And just seeing the eye. I mean, we were
Yeah, it was
hoping we were going
cool.
to see it, and like it was incredible. It was amazing, and it fully masked everything that was happening. There was TIE fighters shooting and things going on underneath. You couldn't even see. No one knew. There were TIE fighters literally exploding, and no one could tell because of this beautiful celestial event. And I think, I don't want to say the shootout was my favorite part, but I feel like the tension was so high there, and the fact that like they were willing to take the chance to kill Terriman. I was like, oh, they're doing it. They're going there. They're going there. Like people are dying, and just Nemec getting crushed by the credits and not immediately dying, and just like it's just kind of poetic, right? Like capitalism literally.
Yeah, is that a metaphor in some way? That
Right.
money is killing the
Mm-hmm.
communist ideal. Money is killing the freedom.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, I thought
But
that was pretty interesting. And like I think we probably talked about this in the last episode, but I was like, "Oh yeah, we saw Nemec and we were like, "Oh yeah, he's going to die." But I thought he was just going to get shot very unceremoniously and like have a sad, like, "Oh man, he really did die." But this was such a different. I would have never expected that the credits would have fallen onto him and slid backwards into him and crushed him, and then just to hear him say like, "I can't feel my leg," it was just like so tragic. They
yeah.
tried to save him, they couldn't. That was like a pretty heartbreaking death.
Hmm.
And I just really like those choices that were made, because again, it's like not super Star Wars that, or the Star Wars that we've known in the
Yeah.
past.
And wasn't immediate either. It wasn't just
Right.
somebody getting shot like with a laser in their dead, ASAP.
Right.
Um, and
Or
I
like,
also,
would he live and just be paralyzed for the rest of his life? Like, would he just have his life,
yeah.
completely altered forever and be partially immobile? Like, it's possible.
I just wanted to talk about Skeen for a second, sort of as
Oh
we
yeah,
are at
let's
the
talk
end of
about
episode
skiing.
7. I loved, first of all, the actor. His name is Iban. I'm gonna get this right. Give it a second. He's also on The Bear. He's been really good on The
Mm-hmm.
Bear lately. Iban Mas Bakrak. What a Jewish name. Um, so Iban is really talented at being a shithead,
Oh, so
and
good.
what a pivot! Like Katie, did you see this coming? Did you expect him to essentially says to Andor, "You and me, let's split the profits 50-50. Let's get the hell out of here." And
No.
Andrew's like, "Oh no, I'm what?" And then, of course, the other side of it is he's like he talks about how the story about his brother is made up, which is that's a gag. And then
Yeah.
he wants to take the money, and very clearly he's going to take the money and then kill Andor, right? Andor's not stupid.
Right.
And so Andor shoots him. How did you feel?
This was what I expected from this episode was that we would see the eye, the ship would take off, and the episode would end, and we would be ending on this beautiful celestial event. So the fact that we got this other, we're now seeing a doctor try and save Nemec's life. Andor and Skeen are sitting outside, and then Skeen kind of like broaches this topic, and you're like, nah, like, is he messing with him? Is he just like testing Cassian again? Like, but no, he was legit. And Cassian's just like, so your brother's tortured? And he's like, yeah, I don't have a brother. It's just like, whoa, dude, that's fucked up. And it just kind of shows that like you really can't trust anybody. And he was so distrustful, I don't know if that's a word, of Cassian because he himself was a shithead and he himself was untrustworthy. So I thought
Yeah.
that was super interesting and a twist I did not see coming. And it also shows like Cassian's just fine with murdering people
But also
who,
he's fine with murdering people who are shitheads.
well, right. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's actually it's kind of funny. Maybe he's just mad that people assume he's kind of like a shit. And he's like, "You think I'm on your
Right.
level? I'm gonna kill
Right.
you! Like, how
Right.
dare you?" Yeah,
Well, I think he also just like, he understands that certain people can't stay alive if he's going to stay alive. Like he understands that. He understands like, oh, if I don't kill this guy, he's probably going to kill me because I'm not going to go with him. I'm not going to take this money. I just want my 30,000 credits and I want to be done with this. Like I was hired for a thing, I'm doing the thing and then I'm getting out of here. This is going to get me out of my thing in life that is causing me issues. So that's what I want. That's all I want. I'm not getting caught up in this mess. So if he either says no and then Skeen kills him, or he
yeah,
either kills Skeen. Like there's no other option, and he didn't even have to weigh the choice.
yeah, exactly. That to me is, I think, the biggest thing is like he did the right thing in his situation, and I like that Vel at first is like, "Are you kidding me?" And then she like understands, and she starts to believe him. She's like, "Yeah, I guess
Yep.
Skeen was kind of a shithead. Maybe he did want to steal all our money."
Yeah, and like
Um,
what motivation would Cassian have to just be like, I just want what I'm owed. I don't want any more than that. I want what I'm owed. Because she's the only one left. She's left. Nemec's left, and then Cinta, who that's actually a question I want to ask you. What do you think we're going to see more of Cinta? What do you think she's up to? Because she's on Aldani still. She stayed behind.
yeah, we saw her in episode 7 a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Very
I
briefly.
think, first of all, I think there's something romantic going on between Vel and Cinta. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was like
I
the
could see it.
vibe of one of their scenes. Um, and I do hope we see more of that. First of all, we love lesbians in space.
Totally.
But
Give us Star Wars. Well, who was the first queer? I guess it was Rose had a lesbian or
oh,
a same sex kiss
who
in
knows?
episode 9.
Oh, vey.
It was
Oh,
like in the
that's the
background.
problem. You're asking me about
Yeah, it
episode
was in the
9.
back. It was probably clouded by all of the other frantic movement in episode 9 that
All
you
the
couldn't pay
other
attention to. Yeah.
terrible racist ire that
Yeah.
Kelly Marie
Mess.
Tran
Mm-hmm.
suffered at the hands of Star Wars fans.
Yeah. Poor
Um,
Rose.
we love lesbians in space, as I said, and I
Yeah.
think also that Cinta is the character we have, I think, known the least about, and I would
Yep.
like to know more of her. I think the actress is giving a great performance and making her both mysterious and accessible at the same time. She's like a do-gooder. She wants to do good for society, um, and maybe we get to see Aldani through her lens now as she's staying back. I loved in episode 7 how we got to see the actions through the lens of the news and through the lens of the media of the empire. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
we've never really gotten to see like Star Wars TV before, have
No.
we? Love
No.
it.
Like I loved. Okay. So anything else to say about episode 6?
Nah,
Let's
no,
get
no,
into
no, no,
episode
no.
7
Let's do
cuz
it.
episode 6, as much as it was like so much hype and build up into this heist, I feel like now we're taking off running. Now we're seeing like the heist was just like a means to
We're
an
cooking
end.
with gas, baby.
Yeah, we're cooking with gas now. Like everything's moving really quick, things are changing rapidly. And I was watching this episode last night and I was like, man, this is so good. Like this, I really think this has to be some of the best Star Wars storytelling that we've ever seen. Like I really think so.
Amen.
I know I've said it a couple of times, but like it just every episode, I'm surprised at how good it is. And this one knocked me out of the park.
Yeah, I was also thinking about this last night in terms of like Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings, the show, is that to me the Lord of the Rings show would constantly reiterate the same points over and over again.
Mhm.
It would always be like, well, this is potentially dangerous, or I want to have violence against this person. Whereas I feel like what Star Wars has done is Star Wars leaps off the point of I'm looking for my sister. Oh no, I'm a wanted criminal. And it keeps leaping from point to point. And I never feel like we are rehashing something to death. It never feels like
Right.
the themes are being explored over and over and over in just the same way with different characters saying the same shit.
Yep.
It really feels like and that's what I kind of love about Cyril, right? Is Cyril is not just a bad guy who works for this company the whole time. Now he's a freaking corporate lackey who's just trying to like, but he's also like seeking revenge and he's like a little
Right.
weirdo. Or
Right.
Dedra is like an intense researcher for the ISB and is like desperate to find rebels and crush them. And we are constantly moving forward in both action and I think theme, and all staying central to the plot, which I think is very hard
Mm-hmm.
for a TV show to do. And it's why
Oh
this is such
yeah.
a successful like Star Wars medium.
Oh yeah. I agree with you 1,000%. The fact that we like see an office building and like a cubicle setup in Star Wars, like the fact that this show is willing to take us there,
Star Wars
and
Severance, baby.
it's just so, I'm like, yes, that give me more of this. I don't even care if I don't see Cassian at all in this episode. I just want to explore it all. Like give it it feels like this stuff has always been an afterthought in Star Wars because we're so focused on the Luke Skywalker and the bringing the Jedi back and what's going to happen with Anakin and this love story of Anakin and Padme that like no one gives a shit about. It's like now we're getting to like, how is this impacting the day to day? What are the like what does a corporate situation in Star Wars look like? What does like a Senate fundraiser look like, or like a party in on Coruscant? What does that look like? We're exploring such
How
like
do you
different
recruit someone to the
avenues.
rebellion? Yeah.
Exactly. It's just it's freaking awesome, and I'm just so psyched that they're making these choices and that they're like going so many levels deeper because like this is just it's giving me everything that like I want from like this world that I feel like I'm so immersed in just from all the different stories that I've seen and like read about and whatever, but like never to this level. We've never gotten like to this level, and it's just like, oh, now we're going there and we're like getting deep, and I'm all in. It's very
Mm-hmm.
immersive.
So when we begin episode 7, I really didn't know where we were gonna go. Like
Mm-mm.
I didn't know if like this was going to be important news or just like a minor thing. But I like that it was like extremely there was an extreme reaction by the
Oh
Empire,
yeah.
by Emperor Palpatine, who's off screen.
Yep. Which I
To the
love, by the way. Love that choice. Love that we didn't see him. Love that people are just referring to like, yeah, I discussed with Palpatine. Like he's just a dude because he is kind of, but like he's still kind of like the emperor who was the chancellor who then got put into the emergency. Like he's still rising in those ranks almost. It feels like even though he's obviously in power and in the head of everything, it's just cool that he's like accessible and people are talking about him as he's part of the world. We don't have to see him to know that.
hmm and the dead don't speak. He's still alive. The
Yeah,
dead speak.
yeah.
God, I hate episode 9 so
Somehow
much. The dead
Palpatine's back.
speak.
Anyway, please continue. I'm sorry, I totally cut
uh,
you off.
um no, it's I like showed my friend Boba Fett, or not Boba Fett. I showed my friend Babu Frick the other day, and I was like, "There's a great character in Star Wars. He's on screen for about a minute. I'm
Yeah,
like, this
yeah,
is what's important to me."
yeah. That's about it.
Although he's coming back in, is it the Mandalorian? Or
Oh,
he's gonna
there's
be
like
back in something.
or like there's a bunch of like his species, right? Or something in like a trailer we saw. Is that what it
Yeah, I
was?
don't remember
Yeah,
what
I
it
think
was,
that
but
was the
Babu Frick's
Mandalorian
back,
trailer.
baby.
Yeah,
Um,
somehow Bobby Frick's returned.
um, and so with episode 7, I think that we're the biggest gag for me, I don't know about you, was Vel being told that she needs to kill Cassian.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I think, a moment where you realize that, like, what I was talking about earlier of the idea of Luthen, what is the price of rebellion? What is the price of freedom? And it
Yep.
comes at not only people's rights, right? Like you said, we get the Empire gets Patriot acted, but
Mm-hmm.
Andor, who just sacrificed his life to potentially get them out of there, is now going to definitely sacrifice it, or now he has to sacrifice his life for sure to keep the rebellion running. I thought it was a great twist on Luthen because I think he was getting
Yeah.
too just like good guy and was like, oh, this guy might suck.
Yeah, it's like everybody here is complicated, right? He's just looking at Cassian as if he's a loose end that needs to be tied off. And I thought it was interesting. The character who's with him in the gallery, whose name I don't remember, it's like seemingly his counterpart. Um, I don't
Oh,
recall what her name
it's like
is.
it's called like Clea or Cle. I'll find it. It's like some K name.
Yeah, you are right.
Clea.
Clea. Okay. When she speaks to Vel and is like, well, he's walking around with Luthen in his head. I'm just like, that's so interesting because it's like such an interesting way to say like, well, we're exposed. and we need to take care of it. Like, he knows Luthen, he's seen Luthen, he's met him. So we have to take care of it. And it's almost like, you know, he's just so fine with just sacrificing anything and anyone around him as a means to an end. But then we see other people who aren't as okay with that. Like, it seems like Vel's not okay with that. Obviously, Mon Mothma is kind of appalled by what Luthen did without looping her in. Like, he took it really far on his own without really looping in someone who's supposed to be a trusted ally, right? So it's like, yeah, he's complicated for sure. But like, he wants to take down the Empire, and he realizes like you have to sacrifice people in war. And he even says, you know, like she pretty much says like, you know, people are going to suffer, and he says that's the plan. Like, it's all part of the plan. Like, people are going to have to suffer.
Yeah.
None of this is going to be pretty, and people have to suffer because it gets them. If they're complacent, then they're not going to want to join this rebellion. They're not going to want to fight back. Like, they have to suffer in order to be pushed to the brink to say like, I can't do this anymore. Like, we have to be done with this Empire.
Yeah. And I think it's a really interesting, what we see in the end. I thought it was a little ham-fisted, but it's okay. But like, the troopers essentially harassing Andor in Miami. It's called like Niamos, which literally just sounds like a Latin American city, like or like, and he's getting harassed by a sand trooper, and the sand trooper arrests him, and then he gets 6 years in prison. And I think that it's an interesting demonstration of just like how fascism doesn't care about what it does. The whole point of fascism is to instill fear into its people so that they will not rise up, so that they will not fight back, and to also sort of villainize these rebels as people who are violent and attacking, and get so many people who could even be vaguely sympathetic to the rebels off the street. And I'm really hoping for next episode that we get some sort of jailbreak, because I think that would fucking rule.
I would love that.
I would love
that.
Dream.
And I thought that the end of the episode was interesting, right? Because it's like, you see Cassian on this totally new planet. We've never seen it before. Everyone's kind of calling it like Space Florida, Space Miami, Space Myrtle Beach. And he's just like walking on the beach, getting harassed for no reason because people are running around near him, running from someone. And he just like looks like the people who were running, or he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Really, he really wasn't doing anything. He was going to the store. He gets put in jail for it. And it's like, this is actually a direct response to the heist that you were part of, that you drove the getaway ship to. And now, like, maybe you didn't get an immediate consequence to your actions, but like, this is how your action directly impacted the rest of the galaxy. And like, now you're suffering for it later.
Yeah,
I guess we have to assume it's like months or years or something later. We don't know how long.
Yeah, he's got a new girlfriend, so
yeah.
That also made me laugh. Just like his girlfriend being like, "Can you like go to the store? Can you get like That's like
remember
me
we
when
like
I wake
this
up on
flavor.
a Sunday hungover.
Yeah, totally.
You're totally right, Katie. Is like, it is exact causation. Like it is correlation. You have done this, and you have created this. And I love that, because I think that it's a reminder of how tight-fisted the Empire is on everybody they have under their control. What I did love was what Dedra had said earlier in the episode, where she said that like systems, she said something about systems essentially like, you can patrol systems, but like nobody cares about those lines. Like nobody actually gives a shit about like, oh well, we're in the Empire versus we're in an outer system.
Like an arbitrary line that's been drawn.
Yes, and you can't just police. All of her scenes, I was like on the edge of my seat. I thought she was maybe going to be a good guy, secretly pretending to be a bad guy, but turns out she's just a bad guy.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where we go with her, because I feel like even she was not. Everybody else was kind of like, oh yeah, we're having this reaction to this thing. Like, they struck us. Like, they're never going to win. Like, we're going to come out on top. We have the resources. And she's kind of like, this is exactly what they want. Like, they want this kind of a response. And it almost feels like she's like a bunch of steps ahead here, because she knows like, I'm curious to see like what her background is and why she is so like tuned in and clued into these this kind of like rebel-esque behavior. Like I'm looking forward to finding out more about her.
That's a good point.
But yeah, like she the whole thing is really interesting, right? Like Blevin is just like, well, you know, everything has to be authorized, and she did this thing in a totally unauthorized way, so I'm gonna rat her out. And then she's like, actually, I found out all of this shit and about the planet that you're supposed to be in charge of, and you're not doing anything about it. And like publicly, he was trying to publicly embarrass her, and she ended up publicly embarrassing him. And then Qyburn is like, hey, watch your back. Like, come take a walk with me. Like, watch your back. But he kind of like was impressed by her kind of like bucking the system in a way. And like, yeah, it seems like everybody in the show, as we talk more about it, the theme is like just getting themselves ahead. And she's clearly motivated to get herself ahead. And he was kind of like, yeah, great job, but like watch your back because you're making enemies here.
Yeah.
People aren't going to take kindly to that because everybody wants to get themselves ahead, right?
Is part of the theme that like the nice guys, the people who are trying to save others, sort of fall victim to those who are more selfish, or the people who are selfish hide in the shadows while the noble peoples essentially fall. Because that's what I think of with Clem as well, which we get the backstory of. But I think it's an interesting point of like, if you stick your neck out, you might get slashed.
Right. Like you really have to, you can have whatever motivation you want, but you should really be putting yourself ahead of everybody else, because at the end of the day, like what's the means to the end?
Also, I think it's worth our time to talk about Clem.
Yes,
which
let's do that.
Did you make that connection before they said it this episode of like, oh, he named himself Clem in Aldani because it was a reference to his dead Refel adopted father?
No, I didn't realize that he named himself Clem. I thought that this was just a name like, hey, Clem, like we're going to name you Clem. And then when we get this like flashback, I'm like, oh, his name was Clem on Aldani and this is Clem. And now we're getting more of a story, and we see Marva, how impacted she is by this and the Empire. It's like, oh, this like goes significantly deeper than we really know and could know. And, obviously some bad shit went down, but for some reason that's not enough to get Cassian to be like, he just doesn't feel, it seems like when he's talking to Marva, it doesn't feel like he thinks like, yeah, whatever, let's just get out of here in a place where they're not gonna, and like live peacefully without them hovering over us instead of like fighting back. Like what's the point? They're bigger than us. Like
yeah. And I think I think what must have happened is that Clem's death has emphasized to Andor that being a rebel is not worth it because you cannot fight back. You're not as strong as the Empire. You cannot win. And I think that what we see with the robbery is that you can fight back against the Empire, but you're going to lose a lot. And it's not an easy win for you, which just, again, I think re-emphasizes his jadedness of we can't fight these people.
Right.
You know, Bix gets her ass kicked and Tim dies, and, you know, everything that he cares about is getting sort of tormented by the Empire, and his theory is like, okay, what if I just get the F out of here? And nobody wants to go with him because they actually want to. Although I'm surprised he never really offered to Bix, like, hey, you want to come with? Like,
right.
Hey,
yeah,
Tim,
I'm kind of surprised by that too.
Tim thought we were like kind of dating, so like, what do you mean that happened? You want to go? Like,
right.
Just say something a little bit.
Right.
But that's what I think is going to happen. That's sort of the theme. We're just getting told it in like very, very small bursts, it feels like.
Yeah, totally. And it almost feels like he doesn't really get the bigger picture, right? Like he, in the first episode, kills these like corporate cops and then comes back and is like, oh, I gotta get out of here because I really screwed up this time. But I don't think he understands like the gravity of what he did. And then same here. It's like, okay, yeah, we robbed this place. I got the 30,000 credits though that I need. So like we can go. And everyone's like, no, like this is, first of all, this is the beginning of something. Something happened, something huge. And now this has changed everything. The first thing that changed everything in a smaller way on Ferrix is what Cassian did and brought to that planet. And then he kind of just like ruined everybody's life around him. And it's almost like he's like ignorant to the fact, or like naive to the fact that like it was kind of the same thing that happens at the end of the episode. Like your consequences, your actions have grave consequences, and it's almost like he's not like putting the pieces together of like, oh, wait, maybe this was a mistake, or like maybe I can't just come back to this planet and like walk around as if nothing's happening. Because not only is this now an imperial run system, which it wasn't before. It wasn't. It was like not in the jurisdiction of even those corporate cops. And now they have the full empire there. The ISB is there. But everybody hates you. Everybody wants to kill you because you literally brought these people here and you screwed everyone's life up. Like you really did it this time, Cassian. And now it's like, oh, actually, you like really did it this time because you're just changing. The Patriot Act is here and like people are getting monitored. And it's almost like he's just like, no, we'll just go to a planet where these people don't exist. And it's like, I think you need to wake up. Like you need to wake up.
Be fucking for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of Marva, like overall as a character? Because I know we were sort of griping about her being like a kidnapper, right?
Yeah.
Do you think she's redeemed herself enough to not be, in our minds, a bad child kidnapper?
So I feel like they said without saying almost that on what's the planet that she took him from? The first planet. Where he was born. Canary. She basically alluded to the fact that like after they left, the planet was wiped out or attacked or everybody on the planet was wiped out because she's like, stop looking for your sister. She's gone. There's no one left. Everyone's dead, basically. So it almost does seem now like she saved him, even though we were kind of griping a little bit about her being like a white savior of just taking this like native kid to this island, leave like this white woman comes, picks up this kid who doesn't speak like the tongue of these colonizers and like it felt a little weird, but now it almost feels like, oh, maybe she did actually save him because it seems like maybe they wiped the planet out after that.
Yeah, I think my guess is that it was probably like an ecological disaster, like the
Right, some
mines
kind of
went
mining
down and
thing.
then, the planet just got totally fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked her arc of like when she was taunting sort of the troopers who were in her house
Yeah.
and then was kind of like like was taunting them about like it's when you don't hear the pounding you gotta be scared and they're like
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah.
stops versus now where she like really is bought into it and I think that you're essentially watching like two different people of one family process trauma differently and it's the trauma of Clem's death
Mm-hmm.
and again this is like we're getting so microscopic on the tragedies of the empire, right? But I think that Star Wars is better for it. We're getting
Yeah.
super close up on the sad things that have happened in
Mm-hmm.
this society, and it's all the Empire's fault. And so we should blow up their big planet,
Yeah.
and we should do just that.
Yeah. I love the scene with Marva. I thought her kind of just like digging her feet in and saying like, I'm not going. Like, I don't care if I die here. At least I'm dying like fighting for something. This is the start to something and that something that we need. And like, I'm willing to just be here and see it through and like protect my home and fight back for Clem and do whatever I can to assist essentially instead of like running and hiding. Like, I don't need to do that. That's not going to make me feel fulfilled. Like, whatever I can do to be a part of this is worth it to me, even if it puts me in danger or even if it makes my life harder. Like I'm not taking the easy way out, which that's what Cassian wants to do, right? And it feels like that's just what Cassian's done all the time. He wants to do these things where he can like get money quick and then be in a better position for like a little while, but then actually in a worse position overall. And I really liked when he said to her, like, I'll be worried about you all the time. And she said, that's just love. Like,
Mhm. Damn.
that hit a little hard, I think, because like she's worried about Cassian all the time and she loves him. And like he never once thought about that. Like how, oh, it's upsetting to you now because you're going to worry about Marva all the time. So you can't fathom it because you're like, no, you have to come with me. I will be worried about you all the time. But like she's been worried about you this whole time too because she loves you. And but you're selfish and you're kind of like naive to those feelings and those facts.
It is like one of the more like emotional beats of Star Wars that isn't just like a romantic relationship. It reminds me a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Leia and Kylo Ren slash Ben.
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it is because I really like these moments of Star Wars where it's like, it's very hard. Life is very hard here, and I'm scared for you all the time. But like, I know that you have to go out and do your own thing, or like, I am thinking of you at all times because this is a very dangerous world we live in.
Yeah.
And it really touched. I thought it was very touching. And also very funny for Andor to basically like be like, but I'm really worried about you. And she's like, yeah, that's love. Like
Right.
you don't know what love is, sir.
Right. Exactly. Like you've never, and it just goes to show again, like everybody's just self-interested and worried about themselves. And now he's like, oh, but I have to worry about you. Like, so you have to come with me. And she's like, no, that's just what love is. And like, you have to sacrifice in life. And I don't think that he's ever like, not that he, obviously he's been through a lot, right? Seemingly
Yeah.
based on what we've seen so far. I'm sure we'll see more background, but like, I don't know. It just always feels like it's for him to just like get one step ahead where now it's just like, no, you kind of just have to live in this and sit in it and deal with it.
Yeah. This is life. And I also think that I like that we immediately see how tight the grip of fascism is on the planets of the Empire as soon as the Saldani rebellion happens. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
I am really fascinated to see where we go next, especially because I think Cyril. We haven't even really talked about
Yeah,
Cyril
let's
enough.
talk about Cyril.
Cyril, well, there's like not even much to do, but it's like he gets like a new job and then he's just like doing his job. And I'm like, I know he's gonna come into something. Like he's gonna go through police files or something and recognize Andor again or something. But like
Hmm.
I'm just waiting for his little weirdo self to do something else in this series, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Even like his mom is like, what'd you do to your collar of your shirt or whatever? Like she's like kind of making fun of him because he just, and this is not the first time he's tailored his outfit. In the first episode, he tailored his uniform for like the corporate cops. It's like he just wants to be so buttoned up and like
Hmm.
I want to see if him and Dedra meet each other because like, gotta see what that dynamic's like.
Oh yeah,
But he goes to this corporate job and he's looking at fuel purity. That's his job. It looks like it almost looks like he's just like doing data entry, like scrolling through stuff or just looking at essentially like filing, it feels like. And he's just sitting there and you can tell he's just like consumed, and he tells even his boss like, well, there's a rebel murderer and that's why I'm here and whatever. And the guy's like, yeah, okay, just like have a seat in your cubicle, dude. Like no one cares. And it's just so interesting that he like keeps coming across these people who are just like, I'm just here for the paycheck, man. Like I don't care what weirdo shit you have to say. Like I'm just go sit down and like do your job. So it seems like
yeah.
nothing is like dampened his ambition, I guess we could call it.
Yeah. And also nobody seems to care that he's like, I was, when he says to his like interviewers, like, I was investigating a murder and like I need to expunge my record. And the guy's like, okay, well, we could take that off your resume and then hire you.
Right.
That made me
Like,
laugh
okay,
a
good
lot.
for you. That's great. Maybe don't share that, and we'll get your job. Whatever. Your uncle's calling in a favor for you. So,
The other the other thing I really enjoyed is like we got the droids from Rogue One whose name escapes me, but the tall boys,
K2SO.
K2SO, and
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing because we see the friendly droids, but I love seeing a non-friendly droid where we're
Oh
like, but
yeah.
wait, you're our friend, and we can only hope that at some point he meets his K2 who is his bestie, and we get to see that play out because I think that would rule. And also Alan Tudyk is very funny, so I'd love to see him
Oh
come
yeah, he's
back.
great. Yeah, I loved this when he was like walking up the stairs. I was like, is that K2? But obviously, it wasn't. The voice was different.
No.
I don't know how like video gamey you are, but there's these droids are in Jedi Fallen Order,
Mhm.
and they are so hard to fight in the game. They are so hard, and as soon as I saw it, and then I realized like that this was not a friendly droid. I was like, oh, Cassian's totally fucked because they are so like they're security droids. They're like trying to, they're like upholding the law and they're very strong. And it's just, I was like, ooh, this is rough. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen when he meets K2 because obviously things did not go well when he met this droid, picked him up by the neck and hung. He's
Really
the,
almost
the,
killed him. Yeah.
right. I mean, the sand troopers like just hang on to him and he's like, hang. And he just holds him up, which is interesting because like it seems like his father, Clem, got hanged as well, which is, I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition. But yeah, he got fucked up by that droid big time.
Yeah.
Surprised he didn't. I mean, obviously we know he's not going to die, but I'm surprised.
Um, what are you looking forward to in the next episode? Like what I said Prison Break. That's what I'm hoping for. Is there
Mhm.
something you're hoping for to see next?
I don't know if I'm hoping to see anything necessarily. I'm just excited to be along for the ride because it feels like there's so much Star Wars where we know what's going to happen. And like
Hmm.
here we know how it's going to end, right? We don't know the beats that it's going to take us to get there. So I'm just curious to see how they've mapped this all out. Like that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see and I'm hoping that like what's going to happen to Cassian in jail? Are we going to see is he really going to be in jail? He can't be, I think logistically because I think Rogue One is 5 years away from this and he was
Hmm.
sentenced to 6 years in jail. So I don't think that he can
Katie,
spend
you've
the
cracked
full
the code.
serve this full term. So
You've done the
something's gonna
math.
happen. Yeah, like something's gonna happen. Is he gonna meet people that we've seen before? Is he gonna meet Saw Gerrera there? Is K2SO gonna come and break someone out? Like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna see like Galen or so involved somehow? Because we know, he's been secretly well, he's been on a planet far away for quite a while, I guess, at this point. Or no, he hasn't. He's with the Empire right now building the Death Star. So is he like sending signals to Saw Gerrera somehow? Like, what's going to I don't know. But there's so many possibilities, and that's what I'm excited for. It's not like we have to follow this linear path. It's like there's so much that we can see. And I hope we get more B2 emo because he makes me so sad.
Hmm.
What a cute little droid with his little stammer. I love him.
Um, yeah. I have nothing to add. I just love droids. Like you
Yeah,
hit
they're the
the nail on the
best. When
head.
he like woke up, I was like, "Oh my god, we're back at Ferrex." I was so excited. Like that was like this is like we don't need a title card. Like we see B2 emo, we know where we are.
Yeah.
What about you? So Prison Break is what you're hoping for. I feel like we're
Well,
we're gonna have to see a Prison Break.
yeah, also some shit's gonna go down with Luthen, I think for sure. We haven't even really talked about Mon Mothma, but I
Yeah, I
think
was
that
just
Mothma's
yeah
she's gonna have like some stuff go down with her and like she's trying to finance her rebellion and she talks to a friend and I feel like every time a character talks to somebody about the rebellion, I'm like, this isn't gonna go fucking well, let me tell you that.
yeah. Well, that was yeah. Let's talk about that really quick. This seems really interesting. I guess she was at like her husband's party. I don't really know what this gathering is for, but I think this is the one where the daughter like didn't want to go to it. I don't know, but maybe his birthday party because she's buying gifts for him from Luthen's store. Like I don't really know exactly what the event is here, but
Mhm.
her old childhood friend is there, who I guess is some financial hotshot banker or something, and she wants to talk to him about setting up some kind of like money laundering scheme, basically.
Yeah,
Some kind of
she has
foundation. Yeah,
access to her, so she doesn't have access to the wealth that
for her
she used to
family.
have access to because everybody's watching her.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love what she says about like I'm causing a nuisance and I'm being irritating so they don't think that I'm doing more than I'm actually doing.
Right,
And I thought that was
right.
very interesting.
I thought that was interesting too and so strategic. Like if she's just sitting back and following all the rules and whatever, maybe people would be suspicious of her. But I'm sure people are like, "Oh, my mother, she's so annoying. Like she's just a babbling whatever," because she's kicking up all this dust in places that people probably wouldn't expect. So it's like an interesting thing. But we do see her when she goes to meet Luthen. The driver is a little suspicious, and then she says, "My driver is whatever." Like all of these people are watching. Like I'm being completely watched. And she's onto it. She knows exactly what's going on. It's probably everybody. It's probably everyone in the Senate is being watched, not just her, I would assume. I don't trust her husband. What do you
Nope.
think? I feel like he's going to be,
Don't trust a man. No.
yeah, no. I trust Tay.
I trust Tay.
Yeah.
I don't trust Tay either though, actually. I don't you never know, I think in Star Wars.
Yeah, you
But
never know.
I guess she lives, right, to make it to episode 4, so you have to assume that she didn't
True.
get ratted out on. But to me, Luthen is like the big question mark out of everybody here. The husband, probably just a guy who doesn't give a shit. Luthen, creepy AF. Luthen has the taste for violence, but it's just making everybody else do it. And I feel like that's always a kind of a bad sign, actually, is like a person who will not commit the violence themselves and instead is like sending out all his little spies to do it is kind of a much scarier threat than I think we realize.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. I really loved the moment. I didn't write down the quote, so I'm gonna mess it up. But when Tay is saying like, I don't want to talk politics, like my politics are probably a little too extreme for your taste. And then she kind of like says it back to him. I was like, ooh, yeah, get him, Mon Mothra, get him. I loved that. I thought that was a great line and a great, like, you know, he said it and then she kind of like played it back to him. I loved that. Yeah,
That's
I
just
don't know.
me talking to people at bars, right? My politics are
Same.
foiled.
I'm like, yeah, I can't. It's way too extreme. My views are way too extreme for you. Yeah, I loved that, and it kind of showed that people kind of look at her like she's ineffective, right? Like, but she really like stepped into her power in that moment, and I loved that whole scene. I'm excited. Actually, that's probably what I'm the most excited for, is to see more of her storyline and see where that goes. And her husband. I think her husband's something's gonna happen with that dude. I could tell. He gives me the ick.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of all the thoughts that he gives me the ick. My husband, my rich ass husband, gives me the ick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Mon Moth was a feminist queen. We're gonna
Love
make
her.
a fan cam for her soon. I love her dress,
Yeah.
by the way, this episode. But that's the only other thought I had.
On the costumes in the show are incredible.
Oh yeah, good
absolutely
stuff.
Incredible. What we saw, Vel wearing, what we saw, again, you said her name and I totally forget her name, but the red coat, Luthen's kind of confidant.
Oh, Kalai. Oh yeah, that was a serve.
Amazing.
Walking the runway, honey. Walking
yes,
the runway.
Mon Mothra, everybody. I was like, ooh, these outfits. And I love seeing like, here they are in one aspect and then here they are in their like real lives, and like, oh no, we thought Vel was just like a peasant farmer who joined the rebellion. No, she's actually someone, and she has a life to go back to, and she like is a badass.
Yeah.
Just incredible storytelling here.
It's like when people get on the jury of Survivor, right? And suddenly they're hot again. You're like, oh shit.
That's exactly what it's like. Yes, that's exactly what it's like.
Oops.
Yeah, oops. Okay, Naomi, any other final thoughts?
Keep Star Wars good. That's my thoughts.
Yes. I just love, like, I know you were not an Obi-Wan fan, really.
I liked it fine.
Yeah,
but, like,
it was fine.
Rock my world.
You know? And I like let the nostalgia get to me. I just love Ewan McGregor. I love Obi-Wan. I love Anakin. So like that fed my soul. This is like really giving me like, oh, this is like good. This is like good. Like, we're watching House of the Dragon. You're watching Lord of the Rings. This is like right up there with those shows for me. Probably better, actually. I didn't really, not to get too into House of the Dragon, I won't, but like, I've had issues with some episodes this season. Yeah. I didn't like this week's episode actually very much, but like Andor has been just hitting every single mark for me. And I feel like it's one of those shows, we just like haven't seen that in a while from a show. So I'm like really excited. Even The Mandalorian, like there's a lot of Mandalorian I don't like. There's a lot of things about The Mandalorian that I could and probably will complain about when the new season comes out. This, I'm loving everything.
Hell yeah. This is a podcast for complainers only.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, cool. Well, Naomi, where can the people find you on the internet? What are you up to these days? We'll start closing out.
I'm at Naomi Calhoun on Twitter or Instagram at NAY_OH_MI. But most importantly, if you're listening to this and you want to help me have work to do, get more work, get more jobs, Somebody Feed Phil season 6 is on Netflix right now. It's a show I worked on. It's a lot of fun, and even if you just watch one episode, it'll show Netflix that people are watching and that people like to watch it, and then maybe we'll get renewed and then I can keep working. So that would be my request to you. And also listen to my interview with Mike White. Pin tweet, you'll find it.
Yes, Mike White was robbed. Naomi's podcast and a true statement. Well, amazing. Thank you, Naomi. I am Katie, obviously, as you guys know. You can follow me on Twitter at RealSlimKatie. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/RealSlimKatie with an underscore at the end. You can hear me on Silent Podcasts in various different spaces talking about a lot of different topics, really all different ends of the scale here. If you like Real Housewives, you can hear me talk about that with Carrie on The Cool Water Show. If you like The Challenge, you can hear me talk about that also with Carrie on TJ Hates Quitters. If you like House of the Dragon, you can hear me talk about that on Fire and Pod with Chanel and Javier. Big Brother coverage, more of it's coming. Isaiah and Josiane put out an interview today with Arissa Cox, Cox, which is so exciting. She was amazing. She had such incredible things to say about Silent Podcast. She like knows us. She knows who we are. She knows what we do. How
I
wild
know
is
she
that?
follows me on Twitter, which is like she
Me
shouldn't
too.
have,
That was
but
a moment. Yeah, no, like she didn't have to do that. Naomi, she like listens to, she gets it. She knows who we are. Shout out to her. She's a queen in everything. She's amazing. But there's, we have some exit interviews from Big Brother 24. We are doing some coverage of previous seasons. Isaiah has something in the works with a few like crossover content creators that's coming soon for Big Brother 23. So there's stuff going on. If you're still a Big Brother fan, you can't get enough. Check that out. You can also listen to all the other coverage we have on Silent Podcasts. Gia is currently hosting a Claim to Fame rewatch podcast with her sister. I believe it's called Sister Act. You can also find Gia covering all things Survivor 43. We have amazing race coverage by Sasha. We have Never Have I Ever coverage by Sasha Chappelle. So we have a lot of stuff. We have the mole coverage, Tiny Bubbles. Carrie and JD are doing an incredible job with that. They're dropping one episode per episode of the mole, which I don't think many other people are doing. I think they're covering it in chunks. So they're crushing it. They already have some postseason interviews lined up with the cast. So definitely check that out. They're putting in so much work into that podcast, and they're doing great, and they're really proud of it, as they should be, because it's really awesome. All that and more. You can just subscribe to us and get it in your feed. If you want to search Silent Podcasts anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow us on YouTube and Twitch at Silent Podcasts on both. Like we said, we're recording the video to this. We're going to post it after the fact. Yeah, that's it. Leave us a rating or review if you like what you hear. And we'll be back soon to talk about the next episode of Andor. We're really excited. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We will see you all soon.
Bye.